Welcome back, everyone. Today we are opening a file that is, let's be honest, it's uncomfortable. You know those moments in life where you feel like you've been tricked?
Oh, yeah.
Like you took some really bad advice,
Or
or you let someone talk you into something sketchy, and then when it all falls apart, those same people just vanish.
it's the classic, hey, it wasn't me defense, or, just sudden silence when the bill comes due.
Exactly. And we're looking at the anatomy of that specific kind of betrayal today. We are continuing our series, Voices Between, a Spiritist podcast, digging into our daily bread by the Spirit Emmanuel, psychographed by Chico Xavier.
And today we are on Chapter 91.
It's a chapter that centers on maybe the most famous betrayal in all of history, Judas Iscariot. But, and this is why Emmanuel is so brilliant, this isn't really a history lesson about Judas.
No, not at all. He uses him as a kind of archetype.
Right. He uses the scene as a mirror for our own lives.
Yeah.
The chapter is titled, That Is Your Responsibility. And just a heads up, this isn't exactly a feel-good deep dive in the usual sense. It's more of a get-real one.
It is a reality check, a big one. Emmanuel anchors this whole thing in Matthew 27.4. It's the morning after the arrest of Jesus. Judas realizes just the sheer magnitude of his mistake.
Crushed by guilt.
Completely. He runs back to the chief priests, the very people who paid him, the ones who encouraged him, and he tries to give the silver back. He just confesses, I have sinned.
And their reaction is the core of our discussion today. It is just cold as ice. But before we pick apart the psychology of this and this idea of the dark labyrinths that Emmanuel brings up, we need to hear the text itself.
We do.
Yeah.
And as we read this, I want you to really pay attention to the shift in tone. It goes from this very dramatic biblical scene to a really surgical analysis of how our own minds work. So here's chapter 91 in full.
I have sinned, he said, for I have betrayed innocent blood. What is that to us? They replied. That's your responsibility. Matthew 27.4.
Words regarding human evil are always cruel to those that listen to the criminal insinuations.
The case of Judas demonstrates the irresponsibility and the perversity of those who are involved in the execution of grave errors.
The careless spirit, upon considering the evil suggestions, in a short time is conduced to loneliness that surrounds him in the circle of disastrous consequences.
He who conducts himself correctly will find in the happy results of his initiatives floods of companions who will wish to share his victories. Meanwhile, rarely will he feel the presence of someone who will share his afflictions during days of temporary defeat.
Such a reality induces one to be more cautious.
The bitter experience of Judas is still repeated daily among the majority of men, although in different fields.
There are those who listen to improper insinuations of malice or of indiscipline regarding inner tranquility, referring to family matters and ordinary work.
Sometimes man breathes peacefully, resolving his necessary tasks. However, the envious suggestion and despair approach him, and he becomes disturbed with false hopes, inadvertently entering into dark and intricate labyrinths.
When he realizes the error of his heart or mind, he becomes anxious toward the forerunners. However, the inferior world, recalling the observations toward Judas, amusingly exclaim, "What is that to us? That's your responsibility."
Phew. What is that to us? Man, that line just lands so heavy every single time I hear it.
It's the ultimate dismissal, isn't it? It's the sound of the door slamming shut in your face.
So let's break this down, because Emmanuel is doing something really interesting here with this contrast. He starts by talking about the solitude of error. He points out that when things are going well, when you have happy results, you've got floods of companions.
Right. And we need to look at this beyond just, people like winners.
Yeah.
In Spiritism, we talk so much about affinity and vibration. When you're conducting yourself correctly, like the text says, you're generating a specific kind of energy.
It's constructive.
It's constructive. It's light. And that energy is magnetic. People and good spirits, they're naturally drawn to that vitality. Sure, they want to be part of the winning team, but it's also about sharing in that higher frequency.
It's the Super Bowl effect. Everybody's a fan when the trophy's being lifted.
Exactly.
But Emmanuel says that when the careless spirit messes up, they are just surrounded by loneliness.
The circle of disastrous consequences.
Is that just because people are, fair weather friends?
Right.
Or is there something deeper happening?
Oh, it's absolutely deeper.
Yeah.
Think about the mechanics of the Judas story. He was conspiring with the chief priests, right?
Yeah.
So as long as the projects betraying Jesus was active, they were partners. They were on the same wavelength. But the second the deed is done, Judas shifts. He feels remorse. He drops into agony.
But the priests don't.
The priests, they're still in the mode of political calculation. They are vibrating on a frequency of cold pragmatism. Judas is now vibrating on a frequency of desperate guilt.
So they just don't match anymore.
They're incompatible. The connection is severed not just socially but energetically.
Mm-hmm.
The text says it's rare to find someone to share your afflictions because the people who helped you get into that mess, well, they weren't there for you. They were there for the chaos or for the game. Once that's over, you're just dead weight to them.
Wow. That brings us to this term Emmanuel uses, the forerunners. He says when we realize our error, we become anxious toward the forerunners. That's a strange word. Who is he talking about?
Well, in the biblical scene, the forerunners are the priests, the ones who kind of set the path for the betrayal. But in the broader Spiritist context, Emmanuel's talking about the inferior world.
So the instigators.
The instigators. These can be incarnate people, bad influences, toxic friends, but also discarnate spirits.
Obsessor.
The little voices in our heads.
The voices that whisper, go on, do it. It'll be fine. No one's looking.
But the text describes them with a specific perversity. It says they're involved in the execution of the error, but they take zero responsibility.
And that is the very definition of spiritual malice in this context. These entities, or these people, they feed on the disorder. They want to see the crash.
Right.
And Emmanuel uses a terrifying phrase. He says they amusingly exclaim.
Yeah, that caught me too. They find it funny. It's mockery. When you fall, when you're standing there in the wreckage of your own life, begging for help, the very forces that pushed you to jump are laughing. They say, what is that to us? It just exposes the lie of the temptation.
What do you mean?
The temptation promised you something, pleasure, revenge, money. But the reality it delivered was isolation.
It reminds me of, okay, let's bring it to the modern day. Emmanuel says this happens daily. We're not selling out messiahs for 30 pieces of silver.
No, we're just going to work. He explicitly mentions family matters and ordinary work.
So what does a forerunner look like in an office cubicle?
It looks like the envious suggestion. Let's just paint the picture Emmanuel draws. You have a person who is breathing peacefully. I love that image.
Me too.
He's resolving his necessary tasks. He's doing his duty. He's, safe.
Just answering emails, maybe folding laundry. He's just in neutral.
He's in equilibrium.
Yep.
But then the suggestion approaches. Maybe it's a coworker who comes up and says, hey, did you see Mike got the credit for your project? You let people walk all over you.
Oof.
Yeah.
And suddenly that piece is gone.
Instantly. The seed is planted. And the text says he becomes disturbed with false hopes.
What's the false hope in that scenario, though?
The hope that by getting angry, by plotting revenge, by causing a scene, that he'll somehow feel better. The hope that there's a shortcut to justice. Or maybe the suggestion is something else, like, you deserve more, you should take some supplies home. The false hope is that the error will fix the problem.
And that's when he enters the labyrinth.
Yes. Dark and intricate labyrinths.
I want to dig into that word because he doesn't just say he gets confused. He specifically says labyrinth.
In Spiritism, we often talk about mental prisons or thought loops. A labyrinth is a place where you lose your orientation. When you accept that suggestion of envy or despair, you're not just changing your mood, you are stepping out of reality and into a mental construction.
You start building walls.
Start building walls. They hate me, so I have to attack them. I need this, so I'll just lie a little. You create this maze of justifications to support the error.
And once you're in the maze, you can't see the exit.
And you can't see the companions anymore either.
Yeah.
You're alone with the grievance. This is what we sometimes call a state of monoideism. You fixate on one single negative idea until it just consumes your whole worldview.
Right.
You stop breathing peacefully, and you start breathing obsessively.
And the deeper you go, the more you rely on that voice that got you there in the first place. You keep looking for that coworker to validate you. Can you believe Mike did that?
And eventually, that coworker gets bored.
Yeah.
Or maybe they get scared because you're spiraling. And they back away.
And then they hit you with the line, that's your responsibility.
And here's the absolute hardest part of this chapter. When they say that, they're right.
Wait, hold on. That feels wrong. If they instigated it, if they poked the bear, how is it my responsibility? That sounds a lot like victim blaming. The spirits made me do it.
And this is the crux of spiritual maturity. Spiritism is built on the law of cause and effect, but the engine that drives that law is free will. The inferior world can suggest, they can broadcast the signal, they can dangle the bait, but they cannot force your hand.
They can't make you sign the contract.
Never. The text refers to the careless spirit. The error wasn't that the suggestion exists. Suggestions are everywhere all the time. The error was the carelessness. was a lack of vigilance that allowed that suggestion to take root.
So we're the gatekeepers.
We are the absolute authority over our own inner house. When the priests say, what is that to us, that that's your responsibility, they're being cruel, yes, and callous, but they are stating a universal law. You cannot outsource your conscience. You can't say, oh, I'm only a bad person because my friend is a bad influence.
The universe doesn't accept he started it as a defense.
It does not, because you have the power to say no. You have the power to stay in that state of breathing peacefully. By choosing to enter the labyrinth, you are using your free will to choose chaos.
That is heavy. It's empowering in a strange way, but it's also terrifying because it means when I'm miserable or when I'm caught up in some drama, I have to look in the mirror first.
You do, but think about the alternative. If it was their responsibility, then you'd just be a puppet. You'd be helpless.
Ah, I see.
If the forerunners controlled you, you could never be free. But because that is your responsibility, it also means you have the power to fix it.
If I walked in, I can walk out.
Precisely. You can retrace your steps. You can stop listening to the amusing exclamations of the instigators and just return to your duty.
Okay, so let's talk about how we actually do that, because we all have those days. You're tired, you're stressed, and the labyrinth looks really inviting. It feels good to vent sometimes. It feels good to be petty. How do we stop ourselves?
We have to practice what Spiritism calls vigilance, watch and pray. But let's focus on the watch part.
Like a security guard for your mind.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Think about the person in the text. He was resolving his necessary tasks. There's a safety in duty. There's protection in just doing your work, loving your family, washing the dishes. When a thought comes in that tries to pull you away from that simple duty, a thought that says, you are a victim, or you should be jealous, you have to catch it at the door.
You have to ID the thought. Are you here to help me breathe peacefully, or are you here to take me into a maze?
Exactly. And if it's a maze thought, you don't argue with it. You don't entertain it. You just dismiss it. You go back to your task. Because the forerunners rely on your engagement. If you ignore the suggestion, they lose their power over you.
And we avoid the loneliness.
That is the beautiful promise at the beginning of the chapter. If you conduct yourself correctly, you find floods of companions. The good spirits, the true friends, the mentors, they're all hanging out on the main road.
They're not in the labyrinth.
They are not hiding in the dark corners of the labyrinth. If you want company, real company, you have to stay in the light.
That is such a key takeaway. We think we'll find connection by, commiserating in our misery. But what we really find is just more isolation. Connection is in the happy results.
Connection is in the good work.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave all of you with a question. And it's one I'm definitely going to be asking myself all week. Where in your life are you currently listening to criminal insinuations?
And are you maybe blaming the people whispering them for your own unhappiness?
It's so easy to look at a messy relationship or a stalled career and say, well, they did this to me. But the text asks us, did you accept this suggestion? Did you, buy the ticket to the labyrinth?
And if you did, remember, you are holding the return ticket too. But you have to be the one to punch it. No one else can do it for you.
That is your responsibility. It sounded like a threat at the beginning of this, but now it sounds a little bit like a key.
It is the key to freedom. Responsibility is the only thing that is truly, truly ours.
Well, on that note, thank you for walking us through this one. It's such a short chapter, but man, it really packs a punch.
The best ones always do. Stay vigilant out there.
Thank you all for listening to Voices Between. We'll be back next time with another deep dive. Until then, keep breathing peacefully. Take care.